What's going on, everybody? This is Future Automation, a place where imagination meets reality, and you're listening to Tejas. Welcome to another episode of Weekend Talks, and we have Siddhant here with us, and we are going to deep dive into Neo4j and connect the dots. Thanks, Siddhant, for your time, and I was really looking forward for this podcast. So let's get into it. Before going into question and answers, I would like to get a little bit brief about you for the audience, and then we can go ahead and we can start with the discussion.
Sure. So I'm leading developer relations for Asia Pacific at Neo4j, where we try to educate and create awareness about graph database, graph technology
Mhm.
to the developers. Tell the developer audience what Neo4j is all about. What do we have for the GenAI ecosystem? We have tons of offering which we're going to cover as well in this podcast. But in general, what's the GenAI offerings that we have? What are we building right now? So everything around graph database, graph technology. That's what we talk about in these meetups. In general, my experience with developer relations or community building has been for more than a decade now. Kind of my passion was DevRel, passion was community building, and that's what I turned into profession. Soon after I left my first job at IBM, and I've been doing this since then. So always love talking to developers, developer audience, be it tech shows or be it conferences, meetups. Uh, Gone through the entire journey of being an attendee to the other side of the table, managing organizers, still part of GDG Cloud Bangalore group as a co-organizer. So still connected on the grassroots level, making sure that we create an impact. So always love giving back to the ecosystem. That's what I'm all about.
I think one thing I would like to mention that thanks to you, because of the meetups that I attended, you have organized, I got a lot of interest in GraphDB, and that's how I started with Neo4j. Although it's not too much that I have gone yet, but after this, most probably when will comes to the hands-on, I will have to prepare myself also.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think the Neo4j itself is a very powerful tool for the developers to use, and I think a lot of companies are slowly moving towards database graph DBs in order to get fast retrievals and fast reports of the data. And I think that's really cool. So let's get into question and answers. So can you give us a brief overview about Neo4j, how it's different from traditional relational database?
So Neo4j is the category creator for
Hmm.
graph database. Graph database as a category never existed uh,
Exactly.
in the previous times. So there was only relational databases, and then came in
No, it's correct. Yeah.
NoSQL databases. Initially, Neo4j was categorized under NoSQL databases, more like a NoSQL with graph
Correct.
capabilities. And then Neo4j realized that there needs to be created a separate category out of the NoSQL database, and we created this category called graph database category.
Hmm.
We are the market leaders in graph database category. All in all, Neo4j is a graph database,
Exactly.
and all it works with nodes and relationships.
Ships.
Nodes are your entities, so your
Hmm.
data is stored in the nodes, and then you connect these nodes via relationships, and you try to retrieve answers, retrieve uh, kind of data from these nodes
Notes.
via the queries.
Okay.
It makes it easier for the entire traversal of the data if it's in a graph format. So that's what Neo4j is all about.
So, any tool that is going for an adoption from the developers, one thing is that they need to understand what are the use cases of that. So, can you give us an idea on some of the use cases for the Neo4j?
Well, typically we say that you can use Neo4j in typically every case. Like
Correct.
every use case that you think of, anything that you think of, you can use. Very basic example, I created a Mahabharata chatbot.
Hmm.
I never thought that I will use Neo4j in that, but I mean, trust me, it was a smoother ride for me, connecting one person to another person with multiple relationships. It was much more easier. So you can use it in any use case for that matter, but there are, of course, few set of use cases that we have uh, not identified, I'll say, but rather we have seen as a trend in the industry.
Mhm.
Most of the industry verticals are kind of using Neo4j in those use
Mhm.
cases. So one is your fraud detection. We're seeing a huge inclination towards identifying patterns in any
Mhm.
fraud rings that's happening.
Correct. Hmm.
Very classic example is the Panama Papers, the Pandora Papers.
Hmm.
So all these papers were published by ICIJ. international consortium of investigative journalists.
Mhm.
They use Neo4j, the backend, to find out how the money is kind of moving from one place to another place.
Mhm.
They had probably, if I'm not wrong, they had uh, I think 11.5 million documents, which is not just the bank statements, it was combination of emails, bank statements, property document, bank company documents. So putting everything under one roof, under one bucket, and seeing a holistic approach.
Mhm.
So that's where Neo4j comes into picture, fraud detection, as I said. Another one is the one use case which people can easily relate as well with is social media recommendations or personalizations, customer 360. So those kind of use cases are also there. You can also do identity and access management. You can go to the access policy level controlling
Mhm.
mechanism where you say that, hey, this user will get access to only this part of the data. This user will get access to this part of the data. So you can do identity and access management as well. Recommendations, personalizations are always there. What else? We have good use case with the energy industry as well, where we call it as more of knowledge platform or knowledge management. We call it as knowledge graph. So you can build a knowledge graph out of your data, which is lying in silos. So
Mhm.
that's another use case.
Okay.
So there are like the use cases, trust me, are not just limited to
Yeah, correct.
these areas, but you can explore in any direction.
I think a lot of people are using it for RAGs as well to
Yes,
implement RAGs. And recent meetup also had that topic, I think, for
correct,
RAGs.
correct.
Exactly.
So more of a spin-off from just a vector-only RAG approach
Mm-hmm.
to more of a graph plus vector approach
Approach.
to RAGs.
RAGs.
So graph RAG, although was coined by my current research team, but has been a really interesting point for Neo4j, where we talk about knowledge graphs being used in combination with vector search indexing,
Mm-hmm.
and you do RAGs using
Okay.
Neo4j.
Cool. So, could you explain some basic concepts of graph database like nodes? And although you have mentioned what Neo4j consists of, but like a little bit brief explanation about nodes, relationships, and properties.
Cool. So let's take a basic example. Let's like everyone loves movies, so I'm just quoting a little older movie. It's quite an older movie rather. Toy Story. So imagine you have a separate node called Toy Story. Now you want to build a kind of a graph for movies, the entire movies database. So what you'll do is you'll have a movie node, then you'll also have another actor node. Maybe you might have also have a director node, or you'll have a producer node as well. So nodes are essentially are entities in your data. So wherever you see any entities in, or things in your
Mm-hmm.
data, that's what your nodes are comprised of.
Okay.
Our nodes hold data in the form of property
Properties. Okay.
as key value pairs. So what I could say is that instead of having multiple nodes as person, as an actor, as a director, or a producer, I would rather create one specific node, which is a person node. We call it as node label.
Mm.
I'll create a node label as person. I have another node which is movie. Now the relationship will define what kind of a relationship exists between them. So
Mm-hmm.
relationship has something called as type.
Type.
So a person and a movie relationship could be acted in.
Correct.
It could be directed
Mm.
by,
Mm.
or directed,
Mm.
just directed, or produced,
Produce.
or wrote. Right. So a person has acted in a movie. A
Correct.
person has produced a movie. A person has directed a movie. Now this person could be directed, could be produced.
Mm.
Easy, like of course you can create multiple
Mm.
labels. The
Mm.
reason of consolidating them under one roof
Mm.
is just because it's easier to query, and also you don't have to create multiple nodes and multiple labels out of it.
Correct. Correct.
Eventually, imagine a situation where the same actor is also the director of the movie, or same actor is also the producer of the movie, right? So it becomes easier for you to retrieve the information from the data.
Okay.
So you and relationships also hold data in the form of key value pairs, in the form
Okay.
of properties.
Okay. Nice. So, Cipher. What is Cipher and how does it compare to SQL in terms of querying data?
Okay. So first and foremost, it's not at all related to SQL.
Okay.
Cypher is Neo4j's proprietary language
Okay.
for querying graph database.
Database. Mm.
Okay. Now, Cypher, just like SQL, your structured query language is to query relational databases, Cypher is to query your Neo4j
Neo4j data.
graph database.
Okay.
Uh, it follows a very similar syntax with SQL so that the learning curve is easy. It also follows a Sky Art style syntax, which makes it much more easier to remember and write those queries as compared to a structured query language.
Correct.
Right. Another important thing which I would like to quote over here is there's a new standard which has been launched by ISO called Graph Query Language. Although not abbreviated specifically as GQL, but let's say assume like SQL is for
Structured
relational
query, yeah.
databases, GQL is for graph
Graph.
databases. Cypher has contributed a lot to the development of GQL standard.
Mhm.
And ISO is invested in the standard probably in the last 40 years for the first time. So it's a great achievement for the graph database industry as a whole
Correct.
that ISO is investing in a standard for graph database category. So tomorrow, all the graph database players are going to migrate to graph query language. So so your migration is going to be easier if you already have learned Cypher. Your
Mhm.
learning curve will also be much more easier because you can say it's almost compliant to graph query language.
So, like, this is just a curious question. Other graph DBs also use Cypher only, or it's just specific to Neo4j as of now?
I need to check on that.
Hmm.
What I know is that there is something called as Open Cipher, which we
Okay.
created as an open source version of our Cipher language, which might be used by other graph databases as
Databases.
well.
Okay.
Cipher that's powering Neo4j
Is specific.
is specific to Neo4j.
Okay. So let's get into some intermediate concepts. What are the best practices for designing a graph database schema in Neo4j?
That's a good question. Usually, there is no direct answer to this. I mean, what's the what's the best way to do it, or is it the right thing or wrong? Um, Always you can do a hit and trial. The best part about Neo4j is that it's schema optional
Mhm.
at the start when you're designing your schema, so you can change the schema on the fly as well.
Okay.
What you can do is probably you can start with the questions itself. Try to find out what you're trying to find answers. So start with those questions. What are the questions that you want to find from your data? Then you start create your nodes, your entities accordingly.
Okay.
Then you start building relationships with those entities accordingly. Try to keep the graph simple. As I said, if you create multiple nodes for each of those persons, like actors as a separate node, producers as a separate, directors as a separate, it might complicate your life in future.
Okay.
To call back that same example, if there's a movie in which five actors are there, of those five, maybe two are also the directors of the movie. Could be a case, hypothetically speaking, or one is a director, one is a producer. Then you are complicating your life by creating additional nodes and then additional relationships as well.
Correct.
Right. So if you have one node but multiple relationships, that's still okay.
Okay.
So we say that have lesser number of nodes, it's easier to manage. Relationship types can define the way that your nodes are connected to the
Okay.
other nodes.
Okay. So, can you explain the concepts of graph algorithm and how they utilized it to Neo4j in Neo4j? Sorry.
Right. So we initially started off with a graph database product, just the database one. Then we realized that there's a need to add in graph data science part to it, which is where we talk about machine learning, catering to data scientists, those machine learning developer audience, where they don't have to write specific algorithms to retrieve data from the graph. So we have created 70 plus graph algorithms like page rank algorithm, node centrality, community detection. So all these algorithms help you retrieve that information quickly and based on your use case, they could be you could fit in maybe a recommendations use case. So recommendation is also a machine learning use case, as you know. So we have created an algorithm for that specifically. So you can easily get the data. Cybersecurity, for example. You want to find out a particular node, how it is connected with the other nodes. Is it the betweenness centrality? Is it more like a closeness centrality? So based on how the nodes connected, you can probably make decisions as well accordingly. So these algorithms are super helpful for for machine learning developers and data scientists specifically to not write something of their own, but just directly use the ready to use algorithms and get them out done.
Okay. Unfortunately, there's nothing that we can do without algorithms. So, how does Neo4j integrates with other technologies such as machine learning frameworks or big data platforms? Because that is one of the important thing. If anyone wants to use it, there should be an integration feasibility with
Right.
their own frameworks.
So, as I said, we had the database as a product, then we have the data
Science.
science part of it. We also have Bloom and Neodash as a separate two products, two offerings, which are not covered up now. So when we were thinking of this entire stack or this entire journey, we felt that not just keep it as a standalone product itself,
Correct.
but rather build some integrations with the other tools. So Neo4j has probably integrations with almost every single data source as well.
Mm.
Your BigQuery tables or your cloud storage if you want to. So you can easily push your data from BigQuery or cloud
Mm.
storage to your 4J. And not just restricting to Google Cloud integrations, but similar integrations with AWS, similar integrations with Azure as well. You also have integrations with Apache, Spark, with Kafka, so you can just use our connectors and just directly get your data ingested into your 4J.
Mm.
We created libraries specifically for programming languages like Python, Go, Java, uh, uh, JavaScript. So you can easily use any of these languages based on your experience or use case, and then like write those queries within those languages to retrieve or to insert data into the data.
Python, I have used it and it's really good.
Yeah,
And I'll be coming up with the videos of that. But still, I am not able to find time to learn and then shoot it. But I'll be coming because that is, I think, the first thing that I usually do is I find any new technology, I see if we can work with Python using that technology. And the libraries were readily available. Documentation is also really good. So I worked on that. I think I created one or two projects using it.
interesting.
So it was fun and I'm still learning it. So the next plan for me is to learn Neo4j fully and then start working on some videos for that as well. So
Even my preference has always been Python.
yeah,
I mean, a fun fact,
yeah,
Neo4j, as you see the name has a number and letter J.
correct.
J stands for Java. So Neo for Java, that was the initial thought process. And
Okay.
when Neo4j started off, they were just a jar file,
Okay.
and then created like a Java library and then pivoted to adding more
Hmm.
support. For me, the the foremost thing which has been I'm not sure about the other developers, but for me at least, Python library has been the best version of Neo4j to be
Yeah,
used and the
that's true.
best way to use Neo4j for me. I mean,
Yeah.
no hate for Java, no hate
Yeah,
for other languages,
yeah.
but
Personally, for me, also
yeah,
Python is really my favorite language. Although I work professionally in C sharp, but mostly when it comes to my videos, if you'll go and check, a lot of my videos, like 70% videos, are on Python. If it comes to coding, I always try to find out if something can be done with Python. So that is you can say that as a habit or something. I don't know, but yeah, that's how I usually go ahead. But it's really good and it works really flawlessly. It's worked really flawless. And I think going ahead, it will be more because Python is having a good community.
right,
So there will be a lot of contribution from people, and people might build on top of your also library
exactly,
because that can make life easier for others. So
exactly,
that can happen.
exactly.
Moving on. So yeah, we are done with integrations, right? Yeah. How does Neo4j manages transactions and ensures that data consistency in the distributed environments?
So there is a myth with the developers or industry out there. The Neo4j can't be used as a primary database because can't maybe put in your transactions within Neo4j. I mean, it's not a asset compliant database. That's a myth that I would like to burst over here. Neo4j is a fully asset compliant database. All your transactional data can easily sit into database and work concurrently as well.
Mhm.
So just fear not. I mean, your data is safe with Neo4j. You can use it as a primary database as well. It has a built-in disk storage. Uh, yeah.
So let's get into some advanced topics. What are some advanced features of Cipher that developers might need to be aware of?
Just Cipher offers some features like APOC procedures, which is called as awesome procedures in Cipher. There's pattern compression and the ability to work with subqueries. So all these features can help you kind of perform complex transformations, your pattern matching in a much more faster way.
Mhm. And so one of the thing whenever you move to databases is security. So how does Neo4j handle security and what are the best practices for securing a Neo4j deployment?
So if you recall, I mentioned at the start, Neo4j also helps you do role-based access controls. You can also do, it also provides you your encryption and auditing features. Uh, the best practices also include making sure that you update your security configurations on a regular basis using TLS for communication and also kind of applying principle of least privilege.
Okay.
The lesser the privilege you're giving to all the users,
Hmm.
it's better. I mean,
Better. Okay.
not giving the access to all users to the entire data. That's what
So it should
they
be
better.
planned well
In a
before.
planned way. I
Yeah.
mean, what access has to be provided to which set of
Set up.
users? That's what you have to plan it well. I mean, otherwise, Neo4j is fully compliant with all the security protocols, procedures, and compliance that's needed for the industry out there.
Okay. One of the thing that now a lot of companies are, doing this. I think it's going on for a while now. Is creating different ecosystems. So we are going to go into a bit of an ecosystem section. So what are some tools and libraries in Neo4j ecosystem that developers should know about?
So Neo4j helps multiple libraries and drivers for the open source ecosystem. Your Python, your Go, your Java, PHP, JavaScript,
Mm.
like name it, and then you'll have that driver. All those tools and integrations are also there for Spark, your Kafka, your BigQuery tables. We have also GenAI integrations with Llama Index, LangChain, Haystack, Spring AI. So we launched something with Docker at DockerCon last year,
Mm.
if I'm not wrong, the GenAI stack, where we started off building some integrations with Docker, LangChain, Olama, and Neo4j together. So you have all the tools out there. So it's again just reiterating, it's not a standalone product itself, but a whole ecosystem that we have created for graph developers out there.
Mm.
So whatever is of convenience to you, you just start using it and integrate it with Neo4j.
So Aura is the Neo4j part, cloud part. And how do you think Neo4j Aura fit into the broader strategy of Neo4j? And what are its benefits for developers?
Right. So Neo4j Aura is our cloud managed service where it kind of reduces the hassle of deployment uh, onto like deployment of Neo4j on a cloud or any other cloud infrastructure. Uh, it's plain simple. I mean, it's a database as a service. You just go out there on Neo4j or a web page, start using it. It's a great option for developers who don't want to go into the hassle of setting up a database infrastructure out there. It's a hassle-free option, so definitely a great choice. In fact, for me as well, when I started learning Neo4j, started using Neo4j, I felt Aura has been kind of a blessing in disguise for me. And I'm sure that holds true for all the other developers.
Hmm.
I don't want to get into the hassle of provisioning my own VMs,
Correct.
or even go to cloud managed service. Aura has a free tier as well, which gives you, although limited capabilities like 200,000 nodes and 400,000 relationships. Good for prototyping and POCs. I'm pretty happy with that offering as well. So if you want to scale up, you can do scaling as well. So it's a great thing that it helps you resize also on the go.
Hmm.
Today, my requirement is not suited for Aura Free. I want to switch it to Aura Pro. You don't have to migrate your database. You can just switch within just a click of a button from free to pro.
Okay.
Once you join pro, you see that, hey, I want to maybe not just limit myself to 2 GB instance. I want maybe 6 GB instance or 8 GB instance with maybe 64 GB RAM. So I want to upgrade now. But you don't want to again migrate your instance to another VM. Right? So
Hmm.
just click the button, resize it, done. That's it.
Done.
So it's that simple, that easier for you to move or rather resize your instance also. You feel that, hey, I don't want a 64 GB instance. I want to just downgrade it to maybe 2 GB. You can do that also easily. So you can
Okay.
resize it as per your need. Don't have to put in the efforts of uh, getting a VM, putting into auto scaling mode, If it the usage is reduced, then still pay for some higher usage, higher VM usage. So all of those things are kind of managed within Neo4j, which is trust me has been the one of the best offering. In fact, launched uh, just I think this is a couple of days back, just 2 days back. We launched a business critical tier as well, which is much more cheaper, much more easy to use as compared to your Aura Pro as well.
Good for the businesses.
Good for the businesses.
So now, being that Neo4j is the market leader for graph databases, a lot of companies are planning to migrate to graph DBs because you guys have made it a bit easier to do that. Previously, it was like, term was already available, graph databases, but no one were into it. Like what, how easy it is or how good it is. That no one, most of them were not aware. People who used to work in AI, they were aware because graph is very critical part of AI when it comes to nodes and all that. So you guys have made that way easier. So when a company is trying to migrate, what are the steps involved in that? So
So migration it's kind of it's easy way. You just have to figure out what your existing schema looks like and use some scripts or some tools like ETL tools, ETL pipelines to migrate the data. Uh, in fact, there's a nice slide which I use in my presentations most of the time that if you're thinking from a relational to graph standpoint, you can have your nodes, your table names mapped to this, your columns maps to this, your rows map to this, your joins maps to your relationships, kind of a thing. So that table is that format is also good to think. But trust me, I always recommend if you're starting with graphs, leave your relation aside. Think from a graph modeling standpoint. Uh, just try to use some scripts to just migrate your data into a graph model.
So the better way to put this is like you plan your graph DB first, how you want it, and
Yes,
accordingly create the scripts to migrate
exactly.
the data from.
And it's not, as I said, your schema is not restricted to what you have created the way it is there in your relational world. Whatever you create, you have to stick to that schema, or maybe just create more tables to map
Correct, correct.
map the data.
Yeah, right.
Right, that's what you typically do. So it's not the case in your Neo4j.
Neo4j.
So your schema can change. You feel that hey, this relationship doesn't make sense. Just delete the relationships.
Correct.
Come up with new
New one.
relationship. Join. This node doesn't make sense. Delete the node. You don't have to drop the entire table. You don't have to
Correct.
do that. So
Specific nodes or specific relationships we
exactly,
can
you
handle.
feel that hey, this label doesn't make sense. I want to delete everything and then start again. For these nodes, you can do that quickly and easily.
Far more flexible.
Far more flexible. Exactly.
But you have to be aware while then using it as well.
Exactly.
But use you a lot of gist, I think, while working with
Yeah.
data.
We have launched a GenAI Copilot as well, which will help you query. So for people who are not well versed with the migrations or Cipher, they can also use the GenAI Copilot as well. Uh, just type in this is what I want from my data. Uh, of course, the data has to migrate first. There's something called as CSV importer tool as well. So if your data can be easily migrated from your tables to a CSV file, you can use a CSV loader to just get the CSV into the project. So that's also an easier option for you.
Nice, right. So how does Neo4j supports cloud deployments and what are the options available for developers?
So you can of course use an Neo4j Aura offering, which is a readily available cloud managed service. Another one is we go to any of the cloud providers, Google Cloud, AWS, Azure, and manage Neo4j directly from their marketplaces.
Okay.
And then manage your deployments over there. So that's one option for you. The second option. The third option is that you run it as a Docker container. You download our desktop file, our community edition, and just run it as a Docker container for you. Okay. Of course, you have to set up your own instances for that. If you're okay to go into that kind of a maybe a hassle for that matter. So it's okay. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Yeah,
some people like hassle.
Some people like the hassle. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are at the very last section of this podcast, and we will be talking about the future community and developers. So how does Neo4j fosters its developers community, and what resources are available for learning and supporting? Sorry.
So we are trying our best to make sure that we bring in the best of resources to the developer community out there, and that's what our development team has been doing, putting their hard work. So one way is to participate in our community forums and learn from them as well. So community forums, the simple way to go is community.neo4j.com. Just ask your questions or answer questions. So that's one way. You can also post your questions on Stack Overflow. We are constantly monitoring both our community forum and Stack Overflow. So you can ask over there, answer over there. So that's both in terms of contributing and also learning. So you can learn from these resources. Another best way is Graph Academy. We have built in the best of the graph content. Uh, and I don't think so that any content can beat the Graph Academy's content, specifically to the graph world. There are courses from your fundamentals to graph modeling to intermediate courses to advanced courses as well. There are courses on Gen AI that we have launched around vector indexing, unstructured data, so everything. I mean, it's a it's a like a one-stop solution for you. So just go to graphacademy.neo4j.com and everything is there for you on a platter. So that's one option. The third thing, which is more like a selfish plugin, is participate in our community meetups. So we do meetups across the globe where we bring in the best craft speakers to talk to you, not just Neo4j, but community speakers. So either you can kind of give a talk or just attend these meetups. If you want to give a talk in India, in Asia Pacific, I'm the person to reach out to. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you can. So that's one way to contribute, one way to learn as well. Another way is there's a ninja program as well, which is more like an experts program. So once you start contributing to the Neo4j developer community by contributions like writing articles, blogs, video creations and sorts, or maybe you participate in these forums, community forum or Stack Overflow, you can also become a ninja where we get much more privileges, special accesses, blah 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 and stuff. I mean, the typical way of MVP program is
Correct,
structured.
correct.
So good perks, good opportunity to be a ninja program where you can contribute as well. So of course you can also learn and grow while you're learning. Neo4j is using a Neo4j sandbox. So sandbox is the platform you can get the hands-on experience. So either you use sandbox or you use Neo4j Aura or a free version. So you can use either of it. You can also use a desktop version to try your hands out, try with a small data set, just run it on your local system. So you should be good with that. So these are a couple of ways you can learn. If we're constantly coming up with new ideas to experiment and kind of make sure that we reach out to a wider developer community. If there's something else that you feel we should do, definitely reach out to us. Always open for the thoughts. One thing which I missed out is our Nodes conference. Another selfish plugin. Nodes is happening on November 7th this year, which is a 24-hour virtual marathon of graph content running across all the three time zones, back to back from Asia Pacific to America to EMEAs to Americas, where we bring in more than 100 plus technical talks, graph talks. So that's another way to learn. And probably this year CFP is closed, and next year you can always apply for the Notes
Right.
conference as well as a speaker. So these are a couple of ways you can learn and grow in the graph ecosystem.
Cool. I think community is becoming a very huge part of any company's tool. That because community is feedback and companies are hearing to the feedback as well, what
Yeah.
community wants. And meetups, I think I'll highly encourage everyone to attend all the meetups in all weekends. I think because that has helped me a lot personally. Neo4j is something that I got introduced because of I was attending a meetup. Thanks to you for organizing so much
With
meetups.
the pleasure.
Yeah, so I went and I tried it out, and that was really good experience. So I think I'll highly encourage everyone to attend meetups, whichever they are, doesn't matter. But I think we'll meet a lot of people that will give us a lot of experience in that terms. So since we are coming to an end, people will also like to know like if there are any case stories or any success stories of Neo4j that you would like to share.
So one is the Pandora paper, Paradise paper, Panama paper, which I quoted at the start. That's one great case study that I love to quote always. Another one is case studies of how NASA or eBay has been using for recommendations or for cybersecurity, and not just specifically saying that NASA is using for recommendation, but just in general. I
In
mean,
general.
knowledge platform, knowledge graph kind of use cases, or for cybersecurity kind of use cases. So there are so many other. Adobe is using, Comcast is using. So there are a bunch of these companies who are using Neo4j. There's a huge list out there on our website. I mean, there are more than, if I'm not wrong, 2000 plus, more than that. I mean, I've lost the count. There's so many organizations. I think almost all the Fortune 50 companies are at least using Neo4j.
Using was
Uh, Again, just not to quote me anywhere on this, but I'm like, everyone has a graph use case, or even if they don't have it, they don't realize it now. But sooner or later, I'm sure they're gonna realize they
still
might have a graph use case.
correct, correct. So last but not least, what advice would you like to give the developers who are just starting Neo4j or graph database in general?
Start small. That's what I always say for any technology out there. Start with a smaller use case, a small data set,
Hmm.
to just play around with things, not just the one that the company or that organization is providing you to play with in the sandbox or what. Just bring your own data set also.
Hmm.
Always that's a nice hustle. That's a
Correct.
nice way of understanding the technology also, how it fits in this particular use case kind of a thing. So just bring in the data set, try it out with Neo4j or try it out with Sandbox, whichever works best for you. Desktop edition, whichever works for you. Learn Graph Academy content. Those are some amazing courses. I've learned a lot from Graph Academy courses. Uh, Trust me, those are like the best thing that I have ever seen. The way they are structured, the content is delivered, everything. Sorry. So that's another way. Um, but don't stop over there. Always recommend to start writing blogs of it. Create videos. I'm super bad at creating videos, but I try to write blogs at least with
Hmm.
whatever I do. So depending on whichever is a good fit for you, so either write blogs or create videos or do both. If you have an interesting story to tell, always reach out to us, not just me in specific. Reach out to any of our developer relations team. We're more than happy to spread the word. Make sure we share it in multiple channels. We run a newsletter every week called This Week in Neo4j.
Hmm.
Internally, we call it as Twin4j newsletter. So this newsletter is a great opportunity for that story to be told to the wider developer audience. We have a good um, database of developers out there. So always encouraged to write or produce these videos or write these blogs, share it to us so that we can also tell the world that these are the great uh, use cases of Neo4j as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's mostly about it. Speak at our meetups. Always looking for speakers. Speak at our meetups. If you have done something great in GenAI, GraphRag, always happy. In general about Neo4j, always happy.
So yeah, we are done. And I think this has been really a very fruitful podcast for me at least, and I am sure for all the audience as well. Because Neo4j has been in market for a while and they are doing really great. You guys are doing really great. And one thing that I think I can say is that graph databases are going to get into all the sections, no matter what, because there at some point, as you said, that there will be a use case and companies will realize this now or later. And I think for us also that can happen. So I'll be really very happy to go ahead and learn that for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
And hopefully in some of the meetup I'll be able to come as a speaker. For sure.
Yes, yes, I'm
I'll
looking
make
forward
it
to
work.
that. I'm actually looking forward to that.
So I'll learn something worth speaking first. But yeah,
Yes.
of course I'll surely do that.
You
So
have a great interest in IoT. Why not you combine IoT with UFOs? I mean,
yeah,
that's a good use case.
that's a wise point actually.
That's a good use case. I mean, take in a Raspberry Pi or Arduino, just put some sensors, move the data to
Yeah,
Neo4j
yeah.
AA and then do some modeling on top of it.
We can do it, and I think if that's okay, then I'll be very happy to
Why
showcase
not?
that part.
Why not? Yes.
Okay, then let's do it.
Okay.
Soon I'll share you the details. Of course, once I'll do it, and we can, because I wanted, that's what I was actually wanted to point out when we were speaking about that I want to implement Neo4j in RPi. Some you putting some of the use case, and I'll show. I was totally planning to do it because I bought RPi 5 recently,
Yeah.
and it's very powerful. So I think it will become a very good tool for me to implement Neo4j, and also in that turn I'll learn something about Neo4j.
Super.
So I'll surely share a video and share you the link of that.
Yes. Let's do that.
But thanks a lot for giving me your time. I think it was really good to have a talk with you, and it was really a great experience for me. So I'm looking forward. So for everyone, we are going to have a stream soon, very soon. So I'm super excited for that as well. So all the details that we have just discussed now about Sandbox, about Neo4j, all will be in the description. I'll put up the link of Siddhant's LinkedIn. Don't bother him too much if you don't have any work. But if you want to discuss anything about Neo4j, he's the person you have to reach out. So make sure you do it. So thank you guys. Thank you, Siddhant,
Thank you
again
so much.
for giving me your time. Keep innovating, guys. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.